Hello everyone and welcome to our Pecha Kucha presentation on ethics in research done by Lauren, Megan, and Zara. Regardless of the methodological approach you take when you're doing your research, ethics applies to it all. Whether you're working on a quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods approach, a sound plan must be put in place before undergoing any research. Ethical considerations are important and included in research plans in issues such as personal disclosure, authenticity, credibility of the research report, the role of the research in cross-cultural contexts, and personal privacy. Considerations are incorporated in all stages of research. We need to look at ethics during initial research plans, during the proposal, throughout data collection and analysis, in our written research report and in sharing, and in storing the data and follow-up records. Creswell in 2014 addresses various ethical issues during the following stages of research: prior to the study, at the beginning of the study, throughout the collection of data, the analysis of data, in reporting and sharing, in writing the research report, and finally, in storing the data itself. Consult the Code of Ethics for professional associations such as the Canadian Centre of Ethics and Corporate Policy or the American Psychological Association, Ethical Principles of Psychologists, and Code of Conduct, including the 2010 amendments. Prior to conducting the study, ethics are pervasive, even as much as conducting our research on the research site. It's important that researchers select a site without any vested interest to avoid a conflict of interest, and that a permission of letter to state extent of time, potential impact, and research outcomes. At all times, it's important to assess the potential risks to our participants. We need to look at physical, psychological, social, economic, and any legal harm that could come to our participants as a result of taking part in the study. Special consideration must be given when undertaking work with participants from vulnerable populations. Vulnerable populations include minors, victims of abuse, people with neurological impairments, pregnant women, prisoners, or people with life-threatening or terminal illnesses. The informed consent letter is the basic contract you set out between yourself and the participants in the research. Informed consent for any data or materials obtained in person or via the internet should include who will be the researcher, the sponsoring institution, the purpose of the study, benefits of participation, risks to participation, and a confidentiality agreement. Next, the next step in our ethical journey is to negotiate authorship and the order of that authorship to make sure that we do not include any unethical practices such as gift authorship or ghost authorship. Now we apply to review boards, provide research proposals, and go forward. Our next step is to identify our research problem. Firstly, conduct a needs assessment, determine the ethical considerations into the research problem, conduct pilot projects, hold informal conversations with participants to establish trust and respect, and be aware against any ethical issues that may arise. At the beginning of the study, contact participants and disclose the purpose of the study to avoid any means of deception. Inform participants that participation is voluntary. Investigate cultural differences, gender differences, or any other differences that may appear on the site. When collecting data, it's very important to respect the site. We need to be cognizant of our presence and cause little or no disruption of activities or the physical setting. We need to treat all participants according to established protocols. Collaboration is encouraged. When collecting data, it's very important to respect potential power imbalances and to avoid exploitation of participants, such as using leading questions, sensitive interview interactions, personal impressions, collecting harmful information, and departing from questions in the interview protocol. When analyzing data, we need to report from multiple perspectives to avoid siding with one point of view. Report all positive and negative results from data in a neutral voice, and respect the privacy and anonymity of participants by developing composite profiles or aliases. When we are sharing and reporting data, it's very important to avoid falsifying evidence, findings, or authorship. We need to avoid plagiarism, verify with institutional manuals on methods to validate study, and data should be shared for credibility. When we're writing the research report, we need to avoid disclosing information that would harm participants. We should use aliases or composite stories, communicate in clear, appropriate language, make sure that language and graphics are understandable and fair in addressing the participant's voice, avoid biased language, and disclose funds for research. In our storing of data, we need to designate ownership of data between researchers, advisors, participants, and institutions' fiscal responsibility. We should discard data after appropriate time to avoid abuse of information. Finally, Fitzpatrick et al. Indicate several sources of bias that would lead to an ethics and standards problem, acknowledging the possibility of human beings rendering completely unbiased judgment is very slight. We need to remember this at all points during our research to ensure that the ethics are at the forefront of our project.